Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are continuing our seminar series on the edible triangle.
Indeed. And for this deep dive, we're moving into a really significant paper.
That's right, it's Dana Amir's work titled The Witnessing Function of the Mind and Its Absence.
A very precise title for a very precise exploration.
Absolutely. Our goal here is to systematically unpack Amir's arguments, really reconstructing the logic of her paper step by step.
So you, the listener, can experience the progression of her insights just as she laid them out.
We want to reveal how this capacity to witness, or crucially its absence, shapes our internal and external realities.
Yeah, what's really striking is how Amir shifts the focus. It's not just about those big, single traumatic events.
No, she looks at the impact of continuous traumatization, that ongoing, almost background noise of trauma.
And how that process can actually prevent or destroy a fundamental psychic function, the mind's ability to witness itself.
So we'll delve into the theory, the clinical examples, the literary illustrations.
And the broader implications of this concept of the witnessing function.
Okay, let's dive in. Amir begins, as you'd expect, by situating her work within the existing literature on psychological trauma.
Right. She first acknowledges the extensive discussion around how vital an other is. Someone to bear witness to trauma.
Especially when the victim, couldn't or can't process the event themselves at the time.
Exactly. Many theorists, like Lobb and Allner, she mentions, have described trauma as something that happens out there, far away, disconnected.
As if it's external to the experiencing subject.
Precisely. And the consequence is that survivors often inhabit two separate worlds.
One is that world of traumatic memories, which feels like an eternal present, kind of frozen.
And the other is the world of concrete, everyday reality.
And Amir notes they often struggle, or are even unwilling, to integrate these two realms.
Yeah, and this lack of integration, it preserves the traumatic memory, keeps it timeless, unchanging.
Which renders the whole psychic movement, well, aimless, devoid of meaning.
Wiseman and Barber called it a music of not knowing, passing between generations. It's quite a poetic but bleak image.
Carruth expands on this too, highlighting the paradox of trauma.
The idea that the most direct contact with a violent event might actually lie in its unknowability.
That trauma isn't just the experience itself, but also the missed experience.
Right, the moment you recognize the threat, but it's just a moment too late.
Van der Kolk and colleagues add another layer here.
They argue that terrifying events can either be remembered with extreme, almost photographic vividness.
Or they can completely resist integration into memory.
And these memories, Amir points out, stay powerful but frozen. They're resistant to change because they aren't part of the normal associative network.
Like primary imprints, lacking words, lacking a narrative.
Exactly. And then there's Ferenczi, looking back even earlier. He saw trauma as this total experience where the object, the parent, usually failed the child.
Through action or inaction, leading to a split in the child's self.
A kind of execution of the self, where the child stops feeling pain, stops feeling concern about loss. It's a drastic defense.
And for Ferenczi, healing could only happen in reparative relationships.
That transformation, moving from traumatic memory fragments to a narrative memory, from splitting to being able to tell a story.
It depends entirely on the therapeutic possibility of reconstructing the experience.
Connecting those fragments. The body's sensations without an image, emotions without thought, images without emotion, into a coherent history.
So it really underscores the need for a witness, external or eventually internal, to even start forming that story.
Absolutely. Lajob, in his work on the shutdown of narrative, cites Moore.
Moore argues the traumatic event is only truly known when an other can provide a narrative for it.
And Lajob himself adds that we only recognize our own story when we tell it, even if just to an internal recipient.
But trauma damages that possibility.
Precisely. It injures both the external and the internal other, destroying the chance for an empathic dyad. The survivor is left without a recipient for their story.
And this catastrophic object loss, what happens then?
It compels the victim, often unconsciously, to internalize the only accessible object left, the aggressor.
Which leads to that concept you mentioned earlier, the malignant identification with the aggressor, echoing Ferenczi's observations about abused children conforming to the aggressor.
It's a disturbing but crucial concept for understanding the internal landscape after such loss.
And Amir connects this loss to the destructive forces of the death drive.
Yes, Laub argues, and Amir highlights, that to grasp trauma's disorganizing effects, we have to acknowledge these forces.
The loss of the good object, the libidinal connection to it, unleashes these drives towards disintegration.
Amir draws a parallel here to Green's concept of the dead mother phenomenon.
Where the infant subject almost longs for a territory of nothingness.
Exactly. Characterized by inhibited thinking, blocked symbolization, impaired memory, ultimately a hole in mental activity.
Leaving the child feeling narcissistically empty in a desolate internal world, bordering on psychic death.
It's a very stark picture of the internal consequences.
And from this foundation, Amir then broadens the scope to a more philosophical look at witnessing.
Right. She brings in Agamben, who describes witnessing as occurring in that space between the survivor who can speak but has nothing left to say.
And the Mussulman, who has so much to say but no voice left to say it.
It's a powerful image of the breakdown of testimony.
Then there's Shoshana Fellman's work, Testimony.
Fellman frames witnessing simply as someone tells someone that something happened.
But emphasizes the critical importance of all three parts: the telling voice, the story itself, and the listening ear.
If any one vertex of that triangle is missing, the mind can't tell a story. It can't even constitute itself as a story.
Fellman uses Chamos of the plague as an example.
Yes, where the plague isn't just a disease, it's a metaphor for a historical event that's almost impossible to grasp without a clear referent.
Chamos' testimony isn't just about history, but about its unreality, its vanishing point.
Paradoxically, the event happens historically by disappearing as a graspable reality. Its disappearance is its unique quality.
Like the Holocaust, witnessed through the metaphor of the plague, an event specific in its historical unwitnessability.
And Fellman defines the historical eyewitness in the living flesh as someone forced to live their own death, to bear witness to it.
An experience only truly understood from within, which no external observer can fully grasp.
And it's at this point, after laying all this groundwork,
that Amir introduces her own specific premise. She clarifies that this discussion serves as a launching point.
Right, she's examining a displaced psychic state that doesn't come from a single massive trauma.
But from continuous traumatization, this ongoing process.
Which, she argues, leads to the destruction or loss of a good object, or even prevents one from forming in the first place.
And here it is, her central thesis.
This primary accumulating traumatization is discussed as something that eradicates or entirely prevents the formation of what she calls the witnessing function of the mind.
This function is what validates our experience of being an I.
And it's founded, she says, on the capacity for psychic movement between the body, the first person of psychic syntax.
And the ability to transcend the self, to see oneself from the outside the third-person perspective.
It's about being able to be both in the experience and able to observe the experience.
So, in a situation of perpetual early trauma, where the infant can't form an I or get distance from helplessness,
the witnessing function vanishes. It just doesn't develop or gets destroyed.
Which, Amir proposes, negates the ability to truly own one's experience.
The consequence: the individual becomes an unwitness to themselves.
And paradoxically, might obsessively witness everything as relating to them, turning the whole world into a testimony about them.
Creating this state of illusory quality between inner and outer. A psychic space lacking volume, lacking validity.
It sounds like a fundamental breakdown of subjective reality. How crucial is this function for later coping?
Well, Amir argues that its role isn't just about maintaining vitality. It's essential for coping with later traumas.
Because it allows that oscillation between being the victim and being the witness.
Exactly. That movement is presented as key for healing. Without it, you're bound to the traumatic reality. No distance possible.
And the trauma then becomes, what does she call it, negative possession.
Yes. Traumatic material that can't be represented or integrated essentially annihilates the experiencing subject.
And internal discourse breaks down into something almost psychotic or autistic.
This continuous early trauma, preventing a coherent self-framework, is the root cause. It's not a trauma you can point to in time and space.
It's pervasive. So pervasive the person might not even recognize that trauma occurred.
They can't even feel expelled from something solid outside them because that solid sense of self never fully formed.
So going back to Fellman's terms, an external witness gives firsthand knowledge.
But the internalized witnessing function, the history is the business of the third body, is what validates an authentic first-person existence.
That feeling of I know implicitly carries the affirmation of this internal third.
And witnessing, for Fellman, is when the story adheres to history. It connects.
So the absence of this function isn't just silence, it's a developmental block.
Preventing the subject from creating a story that can connect, that can become their history.
Amir then explores the interplay between being a victim and being a witness internally.
Right. Even the aggressor's gaze can be complex. Sometimes perpetrators explaining themselves paradoxically constitute the victim as a witness, assigning meaning.
And this dynamic operates internally too.
She suggests it does. And the witnessing function develops partly from the mother's ability to witness the child.
But also from the child's own experience of being a victim of the mother's necessary influence, Alanier's primary violence.
Yes, the way a mother inevitably imposes thoughts and feelings onto the infant's forming psyche.
Which sounds negative, but some degree is normal, even necessary for meaning-making to develop.
But excessive primary violence becomes secondary violence. And Amir's claim is interesting here.
She says the infant's helplessness actually stimulates the creation of the witnessing function.
The need to transcend that victim situation, to observe it, make sense of it.
So the function helps the infant survive that unavoidable primary violence. It allows self-witnessing even without free will.
It protects the I when there's no freedom of movement. It develops in response to a bearable level of helplessness.
And crucially, relies on being observed by a third.
Whether concrete, like the father in the Oedipal setup, or imagined, someone who holds that third position for the mother-infant dyad.
Optimal helplessness pushes the child towards this third, allowing transcendence and internalization of the witnessing function.
It's the capacity to witness oneself, to not feel excluded from oneself, the observer within the observed, the freedom to tell a story out of helplessness.
But if that transcendence is impossible, if the helplessness is overwhelming,
Yet helplessness doesn't activate the function, it annihilates it.
the absence of the third obliterates both the first and third-person perspectives.
And since the witnessing function relies on that movement between first and third, it gets severely impaired, or never develops,
And the damage depends on how early and intense the injury was.
leading, in severe cases, to states resembling autism.
This connects directly to Winnicott's idea of the fear of breakdown.
Exactly. Winnicott argued, this fear is really about a breakdown that already happened.
But wasn't experienced at the time because the infant was too dependent, not there for it to happen to him.
That early breakdown, maybe a failure in maternal holding, floods the psyche,
Yeah.
threatens survival, so it's kept split off.
The later breakdown felt by the patient is just a shadow, a substitute testimony.
And the primary breakdown, Amir suggests, happened when no witness, external or internal, could help transform it into part of a whole self-experience.
Which brings us back squarely to the Oedipal triangle. You mentioned Ronald Britton earlier.
Yes, Britton suggested the Oedipal triangle allows the child to observe themselves while being themselves.
By confronting the parental relationship, initially in primitive terms,
If that bond is seen as loving, and the child can tolerate the rivalry and hatred involved,
a third kind of object relation develops, fostering an internal third position.
which cultivates self-observation, appreciating the other's perspective while keeping one's own.
And this ability to observe oneself while being oneself, it's linked to the witnessing function.
Intimately connected, yes, but Amir says they aren't identical.
The witnessing function goes beyond observation to testifying, giving lasting validity.
So its absence means the lack of that crucial function that affirms, denies, or essentially sentences an experience, gives it definitive meaning.
And without that internal witness, what happens to language, to narrative?
The subject might develop a language that seems continuous, but it lacks validation. It can be overturned instantly.
Like patients in therapy constantly questioning if they're making things up.
Exactly. Or if the internal witness feels false or hostile, it condemns the subject to a false existence, or even annihilation.
Ogden's point about dreaming comes in here too.
Referencing Bayan Yazet, a truly bad dream isn't just a nightmare, it's an undreamable dream.
Something the mind can't process, can't hold.
Right. The person unable to dream is in an undreamable panic, indigestible, incommunicable. It can only be annihilated.
And the capacity to dream is linked to the witnessing function.
Because, Amir suggests, you can only transcend into the dream state if there's an internal witness affirming you as the dreamer, someone who can wake up.
Now, the literary examples really bring this to life. Camus' is The Fall.
A powerful illustration. The hero's refusal or inability to witness a woman's fall from a bridge.
Leads to his own gradual disintegration.
The avoidance becomes a defensive act that actually dismantles him, because witnessing is so fundamental to psychic structure.
He's haunted by the unacknowledged scream, coming from nowhere but lurking everywhere.
Turning him into an obsessive witness of the world, unable to tell what belongs to him and what doesn't.
Testifying to everything as himself, and himself as everything.
Which Amir calls a psychotic syntax built on illusory equality. Outside isn't more outside than inside. The self isn't more self than anything else.
Subject and predicate collapse. The object can hold the subject just as much as the subject holds the object.
This blurring, she argues, happens because the witnessing function acts like a membrane, differentiating these realms.
Its absence removes all hierarchy, all differentiation.
Lanchoy said, trauma is the silent and terrible affirmation of the outside.
So the traumatic primary object doesn't validate the inner world, it perpetuates the outside as invasive.
Instead of a symbolic womb for thought, the primary presence penetrates and sterilizes nascent thoughts.
This combination, helplessness plus inability to develop, can create that displaced psychotic being.
Without boundaries, volume, or distinction, where emptiness itself becomes a malignant, enslaving presence.
Let's ground this further with the clinical case. Gabriella.
Right, a 30-year-old woman. Vague distress, relationships lacking desire, hollow discourse despite good vocabulary.
Her background. Absent father, depressive, violent, intrusive mother.
And that horrifying memory of being dangled over a balcony by her mother.
Demanding she confess something written on her forehead about her father's secrets.
An impossible bind. Confess and fall, or don't confess and be dropped. And that pervasive sense she could hide nothing, all recounted mechanically.
Her life choices felt empty, devoid of personal motivation. The analyst struggled to understand her.
Felt like she was dreaming while awake. Gabriella's narrative was fluent, but incoherent, lacking cause and effect.
Then the analyst noticed the shifting pronouns, second or third person.
Or shifting fluidly between them without awareness. But when she did use the first person, I.
The narrative would dissolve. She'd lose track. It didn't matter anyway.
This, Amir says, is the hallmark. Everything testifies about her, but nothing testifies to her equally. Statement equals negation.
The analyst couldn't hold her experience as a whole. Attempts to link past and present just dissolved. Gabriella would disappear between sessions.
Until that pivotal moment after the car accident, 2 years into analysis.
She lost consciousness, didn't know where or who she was.
And upon waking, realized there was no difference between losing consciousness and her usual state.
The nothingness that is not there versus the nothingness that is. No one to return to.
A profound articulation of that absent core.
And the night after, her first dream.
The infant, with the large head, speaking eyes and mouth, but just a body fragment, dragging herself.
Then the small girl appears. Gabriella asks for water.
And the girl says gently, "But you don't know what water is. You won't be able to drink if you don't have a body."
As she speaks, the body fragment starts to grow.
The girl repeats, "You don't have a body," and more parts grow, almost completing her before Gabriella wakes up, afraid the girl will vanish.
The analyst saw the contrast. The mother's annihilating gaze versus the girl's witnessing gaze in the dream.
The mother's language was annihilating. No father figure offered transcendence. Gabriella was trapped at her vanishing point.
No validity, no differentiation.
The dream shows the illusory equality head governs body. Testimony creates reality, but it shifts.
From the mother's annihilating language to the child's, a non-annihilating testimony.
Which restores not just a physical body, but the possibility of a first-person speaking body.
And the analyst's role. Could activating her own witnessing function have helped?
Amir suggests yes. For a trauma Gabriella couldn't witness, depositing it with the analyst activated a living testimony.
The therapy revived the annihilating scene, but the analyst, as witness, wasn't annihilated.
The analyst performed a negative digestion, processing Gabriella's empty materials through countertransference.
Making them full, meaningful, so Gabriella could eventually digest them herself.
Which leads back to that question of nothingness. Is it absence or presence?
In this context, it's a mode of presence. To grasp the nothingness that is, the analyst had to agree to be the nothingness that is not there. Validating her own perceptions was key.
Now Beckett's waiting for Godot, another powerful illustration.
Right. Amir uses it as an example of reality where the witnessing function is absent.
The opening lines, so there you are again. Hollow testimony. Estragon needs Vladimir to confirm his existence.
His distance from himself mirrors Vladimir's distance from him. Alienation.
Estragon can't recognize others, or himself. Defers constantly to Vladimir for validation. He lacks a self, so he lacks an outside or inside.
And that exchange. Are you bored? I'm not listening.
Encapsulates their dynamic, Amir says. The only bearable connection is no connection. Not listening testifies to their mutual absence from experience.
The lack of differentiation extends everywhere. Is it a tree or a bush?
Animate versus inanimate blurs, too. The animate is inanimate.
Their inability to recall their own history, sequence, location. What did we do yesterday?
They are erased witnesses to their own lives.
And when Estragon tries to share a dream, Vladimir shouts, "Don't tell me. Nightmares must remain private."
The private is what the other cannot bear. Anything creating psychic volume is unbearable. Sharing a dream seeks validation, but the other can't offer it.
Amir links this dyad to the primary one. No third, accumulated helplessness, inability to transcend. Godot is the absent third.
They exist as erased witnesses, excluded even from feeling excluded. Internal is external. Present is an undreamable dream, neither awake nor asleep.
Vladimir refusing the dream echoes Camus's hero refusing to witness the fall. It fragments the witness.
Then Pozzo and Lucky. Pozzo treats Lucky like an animal.
And Vladimir and Estragon struggle to remember Lucky is human.
Pozzo testifies Lucky into a beast, Amir argues, and the others participate because they lack a valid vantage point.
Their detachment makes them non-judgmental witnesses to everything. They can't transcend the visible, can't take a stance. Everything is true, nothing is true.
Key features: inability to judge, distinguish truth-falsehood, inner-outer, self-non-self, past, present, future.
Remembering the past, imagining the future, tied to transcending the present.
Without that transcendence, experience is sterile, a psychic void, their syntax is hollow, no psychic work possible.
Pozzo's line about tears and laughter being fixed cancels individual meaning. No one holds title to anything, just random samples.
And his other line. I don't remember exactly what I said, but you can be sure there wasn't a word of truth.
Perfect example. Statement equals negation, constant reversibility.
It's a psychotic discourse. No reliable testimony. Thought negates thought. Experience negates experience. Shifting ground. Non-being in non-place.
Amir connects this to Matt Blanco's concept of symmetric relations in the unconscious.
Right. Conscious thought is asymmetric. A is left of B. B isn't left of A. Unconscious treats relations as symmetric. A equals B.
The witnessing function acts as a membrane between these logics, too.
Yes. Not just inside-outside, self-other, but symmetric is symmetric. Its absence removes hierarchy, individuation, blurring cause and effect.
To Vladimir's lament, they never recognize us. Lack of identity, memory, symptoms of erased self-witnessing.
That absolute strangeness toward oneself characterizes psychosis. Self-witnessing needs a fixed point, a stable self.
When the boy messenger arrives, Vladimir asks, "You did see us, didn't you?"
Desperate dependence on the other's testimony for existence. But the psychotic lacks the internal capacity to maintain that testimony.
And the recurring dog song in the play
Shows the circularity. Action and narrative merge. Testimony and event invalidate each other. The speaking I is obliterated.
Like Gabriella, they exist without distinction between conscious, unconscious, not alive and not dead, liminal, unable to bear witness to themselves.
Amir also brings in boredom here. Kahn, Winnicott, Bergstein.
Kahn saw boredom as a defense against psychic movement, freezing space, linked to inauthenticity.
Winnicott, a disconnect between emotion and cognition, replacing holding with intellectual isolation.
Bergstein, chronic emptying of the mind or encountering the autistic core. Suspension of meaning-making, boredom as the presence of death, not absence of life.
But crucially, Amir notes, in the most traumatic states, the boredom isn't in the boring person. It's projected into the other.
The other becomes the recipient of this ownerless emptiness. The capacity to make meaning is impaired.
Evoking boredom in someone else indicates a flaw in one's own meaning-making, an attack on meaning itself.
Psychosomatic illnesses, too, are seen as manifestations.
Like Agamben's muscleman, naked testimonies without a witness, a story without an owner, physical body discourse without a speaking eye.
The clearest testimony, yet where the subject is most absent.
Survivors of primary traumatization, the living dead. The witnessing function differentiates them from the neither dead nor alive.
Witnessing transforms trauma into psychic possession. Without it, trauma is just depleting, nullifying. So, wrapping up Amir's contribution, the absent witnessing function illuminates how continuous trauma creates this fissure.
By annihilating the membranes between symmetrical, symmetric, logic, effacing distinctions between cause-effect, inner-outer.
Trapping the subject in negative possession, where empty materials aren't digested, but annihilate the subject.
And this requires that specific developmental scenario.
Yeah.
Maternal violence plus the absence of a third for transcendence.
The witnessing function is the membrane against these processes. Its absence unleashes them.
The only hope, transmitting those empty materials to another subject who can digest them.
Gabriella's case shows it all. Lack of differentiation, the negative metabolism threatening both patient and analyst.
In Godot's characters wait for a third to witness them, stop the annihilation. Gabriella's hope lay in the analyst digesting her emptiness.
Transforming it into something full, intelligible, redigestible.
Bruno Schultz wrote of a plot derailed from time, unfathomably deep, yet bottomless.
Continuous traumatization is like that derailed plot, beyond measurement.
The witnessing function, Amir concludes, is what enables assessment, integration. Its absence leaves the subject in a displaced, barren territory.
Denied even repetition, because the psyche can't repeat what hasn't yet been experienced by its speaker. Wow. This deep dive into Dana Amir's work really shows how witnessing, or its absence, weaves the very fabric of our psychic experience.
It does. It leaves you with a profound sense of those unseen struggles and the foundational role of having our experiences validated internally and externally.
It's crucial for building a coherent self. The implications go beyond trauma, really.
Challenging us to think about the silent mechanisms shaping our sense of reality, the absolute necessity of narrative.
So the question for you, listening, might be, in what ways do you seek or provide this witnessing function in your own life? Unknowingly, perhaps.
Are there stories still waiting for a witness, even within your own internal landscape?
Because this exploration suggests owning your narrative, distinguishing self from other, being present in your history. It's not automatic.
No, it's a complex psychic achievement.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We hope this exploration has offered you valuable insights to ponder.